Are the Marvelous Future CPAs, and today we're gonna discuss Chapter 1 Current Liabilities. So let's start to liability. Liability is an obligation. Dito pwede mag-arise through law, contractual, or constructive. It is a transfer of an economic resources. Dito may be cash or non-cash asset, may be receivables, PPE, or land. And last, it is a present obligation as a result of past events. Dito, nangyari na yung event na yon to incurred liability. Executory contracts, for example of this, meron tayong service contract na si A ay need mag-work on a company website ni B. So, bago matapos ang contract, si B ay need magbayad sa service ni A, habang si A ay need i-maintain ang company website ni B. At this point, the contract is executory because both sides have still an obligation to perform. Recognition criteria. Mare-recognize natin na liability ang isang item if na-meet niya ang definition ng liability at nagpo-provide ito ng useful information like relevant. It means nagpo-provide siya ng predictive power regarding sa possible future events, and faithfully, for example nito, yung company nag-report sa balance sheet na merong accounts receivable na 1.2 million at the end of June. So, dapat on that day, may 1.2 million na accounts receivable na maipepresent. Financial liability. Ang financial liability po ay isang contractual to pay cash or another financial asset. This is a contractual from the word itself, guys. It arises contrast. Basically, this is a legal obligation. We have here contractual to pay like cash or other financial asset. Pwede natin ibayad yung accounts receivable, pwede din natin gamitin yung notes receivable or other investments. It could be equity instrument. Example dyan are the ordinary shares and preferred shares. Non-financial liability. Basically, it is a residual definition. Ang current, kapag kinumpare mo sa non-current, ang non-current po ay is a residual definition of financial liability. Isa lang pong ibig sabihin yan, guys. Basically, what is non-financial liability? Okay, so what is not financial liability is a non-financial liability. That's what you mean by residual definition. Ito yung tira-tira. At kung yung financial liability ay arises contrast obligation, ito naman nung financial liability did not arises from contract. Of course, sa financial liability, merong involvement like cash at sa non-financial liabilities. Magpo-provide tayo ng service or other non-cash asset. Presentation of financial instrument. Merong financial liability. The entity has a contractual obligation to pay cash or another financial asset. At meron namang equity instrument. The entity has no obligation to pay cash or another financial asset. Classification of financial liabilities. Ang liability ay name-measure yan through amortized cost, meaning kasama na dito yung mga interest na ma-earn. Pero may exemption yon. Yung financial liabilities through profit or loss, ang derivative liabilities. Sa pagko-compute nito, ang ginagamit ay ang fair value dahil minsan, di ba, parang mas madaming utang yung company kesa sa asset at owner's equity nila. Meaning, kapag nag-set lang sila ng standard sa pagbabayad, malulugi yung nagpautang or nag-invest sa kanila kasi parang nagre-risk sila na either makukuha yung ipinautang na may interest or walang makukuha. Financial liabilities sa pag-transfer ng isang asset. Hindi magko-compute through amortized cost kapag ang itin-transfer mo na asset ay hindi siya ide-recognize or pwede nating sabihin na kapag babawasan ng price. For example, nag-loan ako sa bank, tapos 'di ba nagkaroon ng agreement kung saan magsasabi kung anong collateral nila ang makukuha sa iyo. Edi yung kotse, nag-pandemic, edi hindi ka makapagbayad. Ngayon, ita-transfer ko sa iyo yung ownership ng kotse sa iyo at ikaw na ang magtutuloy na magbayad. Hindi pwedeng at amortized cost ang pag-compute ng liability doon dahil meron ng agreement between the bank and yung ikaw na umutang. Measurements financial liabilities. In measuring financial liability, you may use either it could be fair value or fair value minus transaction cost. Ang example natin dyan, commission to agent and to the broker. I referring here sa subsequently financial liability either fair value profit and loss, of course, amortized cost. I-measure natin yung fair value profit and loss when that is held for trading. In the held of trading, in the first place, it is designated na talaga siya to be measured as fair value profit and loss. And of course, kung wala to, we're going to amortize cost. Measuring of non-financial liability. Dito, gagamit tayo dito ng best estimate. I-estimate natin yung non-financial liability kasi yung sa service, 'di ba? Estimate natin kung magkano yung halaga ng service or nung non-cash asset. Kung cash naman, alam na natin kung magkano kaso ito ay non-financial liability kaya gagamitin natin ang best estimate.
So, dito naman tayo sa current liability, sa non-current liability. Usually, makikita natin siya kapag gagawa tayo ng balance sheet. So, let's see how we can classify if the account is a current liability. First, short-term liabilities. Second, to be settled within the normal operating cycle. And also liabilities that due to be settled within 12 months after the reporting period. So, ibig sabihin lang ito is kapag tapos ng 12 months ng reporting period, meron ka pa ulit another 12 months para masabi mo na yung account mo is still a current liability. Second, held primarily for trading. Ibig sabihin lang dito is gamit siya sa pang-araw-araw na operasyon ng kumpanya. Breach of contract. Ibig sabihin is kapag ka na labag mo yung kontratang pinag-usapan ninyo. Sa non-current liabilities, a long-term debt. All liabilities are classified as current as classified as not current liabilities. Obligation to be settled more than 12 months. Yung kanina kasi sa current liability, within 12 months after the reporting period, ito naman more than 12 months. So example is long-term loans, bonds payable, deferred tax liabilities, long-term lease obligation, and pension benefit obligation. So, dito naman tayo sa trade payables. Ano nga ba yung trade payables? Is inventory on credit. So, kapag sinabi natin inventory, ito yung mga stock natin ng raw materials na gagamitin natin para makagawa tayo ng isang finished product. So, next is yung receive goods or services first, then pay later. So, paano ba yun? Kunyari sa supplier, meron siyang goods or services na i-deliver kay grocery store or sa business. Tapos si business, meron siyang obligation na bayaran si supplier. So, sabi, yung si grocery store need to settle the supplier within the 12 months after the reporting period. Kasi ang sabi is yung trade payables, mga-classified natin siya as current liabilities. So, may example ako dito kung paano natin i-journal entry yung trade payables. Debit inventory and credit trade payables. Si inventory, dahil meron ng dineliver si supplier, nag-increase siya. Then si trade payables, nag-increase din siya dahil meron tayong payables kay supplier. Pero yung ibang business, ginagamit nila yung accounts payable and trade payables ng isa lang. Pero mamaya ipapaliwanag ko kung ano yung pinagkaiba talaga nila. Next, non-trade payables, obligation not related directly to the core operating business of the company. Yung mga obligation doon na hindi naman talaga totally related sa pag-ooperate ng business. So, kagaya nga sabi ko kanina, yung pagkakaiba ng accounts payable versus trades payable. Accounts payable, ito lang yung mga short-term obligation ng isang kumpanya. While trade payables, ito naman yung mga inventory-related goods such as business supplies or materials that are part of the inventory. So, sa madaling paraan, yung tatandaan lang natin dito is yung trade payables is inventory. example of payables. Yung una is yung accounts payable. Obligation not supported by formal promises to pay by the debtor. So, ibig sabihin lang dito is once na umutang ka, kahit walang written agreement or formal agreement, meron kang obligasyon na bayaran siya sa pinagkasunduan nyo. So, for example, yung sa tindahan, kapag kauutang ka para pang ulam nyo, kunyari sabihin mo kay Aling Nena na palista na lang muna yung binili mo, tapos babayaran mo na lang sa susunod na sahod mo. Ibig sabihin na may accounts payable ka kay Aling Nena, tapos si Aling Nena may accounts receivable sa'yo. Next, yung notes payable. Ito namang notes payable supported by promissory note. Ito yung may mga kasulatan, yung may mga pipirmahan ka. Next is yung loans payable. Ito naman, madali lang dahil ito yung mga money loans, yung mga panghihiram ng pera sa mga bangko. Sunod yung bonds payable. Yung bonds payable naman, can issue by corporation, hospital, and government. Ito naman, promise to pay the interest due and principal at the specific time.
Ang refinancing agreement ay kasunduan sa pagitan ng kumpanya at bangko na muling pondohan ng utang o obligasyon ng isang kumpanya. Refinancing. Ito ay proseso ng pagbabayad ng utang o obligasyon sa pamamagitan ng muling pagpondo nito sa lender o sa bangko na nagpapahiram ng pera sa isang kumpanya. Halimbawa, kapatangin ka para mabayaran mo ang mga obligasyon mo at gagawa nila ng panibagong struktura o paraan ng pagbabayad. Pwedeng paliitin o lakihan buwan ng bayad o liitan ng interes depende sa pag-uusap ng borrower at
Let's practice this topic. Para maseta ng obligasyon ng ABC Company sa lender o bangko, nag-ask siya kay lender na i-refinance ang utang ng company in a long-term basis of payment at pumayag naman both parties. Base doon sa illustration, si ABC ay may babayaran na 1 million ng utang sa bangko na magmamature sa July 1, 20x2 o next accounting period. Ang interest na 10% ay effective every half of the year, which is July 1 and December 31. Question is, how much is presented as current liability in relation to the loan in ABC's 20x1 year-end financial statement? So, ang sagot ay 1 million pa din ang current liability dahil nung March 15, 20x2 palang authorized per issue ang financial statement ng company na requirements for approval o restructure ng pagbabayad kay lender o bangko. Hindi pa hawak ng company ang desisyon para sa nasabing agreement. Liabilities payable on demand. Liabilities that are payable upon the demand of the lender are classified as current liability. If the lender provides the entity's liability by the end of the reporting period, ito yung mga liabilities or obligation based sa demand ng lender. Rendered services or any other financing parties at classified na ito na current liability. Parang bills or utilities expenses sa bahay. Once na nag-arrive na yung bill at natanggap mo na, ito ay automatic na obligasyon na dapat na bayaran or isulat sa book as a liability payable.
Unearned income. It is an advance collection of income that is not yet earned. It means we need to render the service to the customer before we earned it. Unearned revenue refers to a company received cash in advance to do with the customer. It is a liability account because meron tayong utang na serbisyo sa customer na binayaran na niya. Deferred revenue, sale of services. Ito yung maagang pagbabayad ng customer mo sa tao ng subscription niya. Katulad ng pagrerenta ng bahay, isang taon yan na itong binayaran. Kontrata sa mobile, sa cellphone, or sa ticket pang concert. Unearned subscription monthly. Example dito, meron akong gym. Tapos, yung earnings ko from subscription. Bali, yung customer magbabayad ng good for 1 year. Example, 1,200 per year. monthly earning ko is 100. So, ma-earn ko lang siya pag na-render na yung service. Certificate. Many company issued gift certificate to anyone to pay without cash or debit card. So, itong gift certificate, pwede itong magamit ng mga tao pambayad sa groceries, bookstore, or pambayad ng serbisyo. So, yung kumpanya ng Liminho company, nagbenta sila ng gift certificate that expire 1 year pagkatapos nila itong ilabas. So, ang nabenta nila is 1 million. Tapos, ang nakagamit na ng gift certificate o naipalit na naibayad na ay 700 na nakatao. So, merong pang 10% na tao na hindi nakagamit kasi naabutan na expiration. So, ibig sabihin, yun na yung kita ng kumpanya na Liminho company.
Liability for deposit received. Yung customer deposit, naka-classified siya as current or long-term liability. Current if ginawa within 1 year. Long-term if more than 1 year. This is deposit liabilities of bank. Dito, kapag ikaw ang nag-deposit sa bangko, meaning sila ang may liabilities sa'yo. Deposit yung perang nilagak mo. Yun na rin yung nagiging way of investment mo kasi di naman pinapatulog ng bangko yung pera mo. Ipinauutang nila yan sa mga ibang businesses. And since may dineposito kang, may obligation silang bigyan ka ng interest sa cash. Deposit for returnable containers. Kunwari tayo si Coca-Cola, may mga bote tayong pinapahiram sa mga buyer. Kapag nagbenta tayo ng Coke, humihingi tayo ng deposito from the buyer. Pero ibabalik din kay buyer once na binalik niya na yung bote sa atin. Nakaka-receive tayo ng cash pero ibabalik rin natin yun kay buyer once nga na naibalik niya na yung bote sooner or later. Kasi if ever na nabasag or di niya na naisoli yung bote, ang magiging kapalit nito is yung depositong ibinigay niya. Ito yung halimbawa ng computation. Pangatlo na, security deposit from the lease. Ito, kapag yung leasee nagbayad ng advance rental or security deposit, the leasee shall account this as asset nung time ng payment. Ire-report niya yun as lease or rent expense sa period na in-applied to lease. Sa part naman ng lessor, advance rental and security deposit ire-record as liability nung period ng receipt at ire-report sa lease income nung period when applied to lease. Minsan yung mga landlords ina-apply yung security deposit as rent from the tenant kapag hindi na nakababayad or ginagamit nila ito para ma-repair yung damage na ginawa ng tenant. Pero kapag wala namang nasira or umalis na yung tenant, ibabalik ulit nila yung security deposit sa tenant. Ang apat naman is deposit held under escrow agreement. Escrow agreement, ito yung contract na nandun yung terms and conditions between parties involved, yung mga responsibility nila. Sa part ng depositor, sila yung nagde-deposit ng funds or asset kasama yung escrow agent hanggang sa ma-fulfilled na nila yung contract, na met na yung mga condition, yung escrow agent, i-deliver na yung funds or assets sa beneficiary. Last, deposit for future subscription of shares of stocks. Yung payment na ginagawa ng existing stockholders or new subscriber ng bank ay para mag-increase yung authorized capital. Kapag na-authorize na yung capital, dalawa lang ang classification, either liability or equity. Liability kapag repayable in cash, meaning may liability ka dun sa nag-deposit. Kapag naman ika-classified mo siya as equity, sa capital siya kasama kasi not repayable in cash.
Accrued expenses. Ito yung alam mo na expense mo to, pero hindi mo pa siya nababayad. Dividends payable. Dito, pwedeng required o hindi required ang approval ng mga relevant authority like Board of Directors sa pag-declare ng dividends. Depende ito sa napag-usapan. And cash and property dividends lang ang nare-recognize na liability. That's all. Thank you so much.